Afternoon and welcome to this Audit and Risk Committee meeting. Call for apologies. I don't believe we have any. We have Councillor McMillan and Councillor Hooper joining us on Teams, as well as Murray Harrington, our external member of the committee. Any extraordinary business? No. Declarations of interest? None. Confirmation of the minutes there on page 3. 4. No amendments, alterations? If not, someone like to move, please? Councillor Cameron. Councillor Brown.
We get it.
Yeah. All those in favour, please say aye. Thank you. So we've played a little bit of musical chairs in the chamber to try and confuse the chairs. So, okay. ACL statement of intent is who's going to you?
Happy to respond to any questions. This is the process. They submitted their a draft. We made some comment. They have reflected those comments and have now issued the statement of intent.
Are there any questions around ACL statement of intent? Councillor Cameron?
I'm just trying to find it at the moment, and I haven't. I'm just looking for it now. But my question is around a statement of expectation. Have we communicated with them that we'd like a statement of expectation as well as a statement of intent?
But we do that, not them.
I'm sorry, I can't answer that question,
Yeah.
whether we've communicated it with them yet, but we've noted Council's desire for a statement of expectation.
Great, thank you.
So we understand that we need to do that, but whether or not we've made ACL aware of that, I just can't answer.
Thank you. I'm just trying to find the we're ahead on my questions, mate. I'll hang up.
Thank you. Any other questions there? There are none. There's a recommendation there on page 5 that the committee agree to the final 25-26 statement of intent for Ashburton Contracting Limited.
I've got another question. I'm just trying to get that.
Oh, well,
Yep.
Oh, no, you've got the teacher first, lady.
No, I had no question. I can't
Yes.
see.
Yeah. Councillor Cameron?
With regards to, was it 50% of after tax? I'm just trying to remember it. 50% of after tax profit was set as a dividend, as an expectation, but not a mandate. Have I understood that correctly?
Yes, if it's contained within the detail of the statement of intent, then what it's saying is they intend to do that. But directors of ACL are charged under company law to look after the best interests of the company.
Sure.
So if there are reasons why that may or may not be possible in any particular circumstance, then they will firstly put the interests of the company
Yes.
ahead of
Yeah.
dividend
And
statement.
so those reasons would be, suddenly the chair said we can't do that this year because of X, X and X. They'd come and they'd say, because of X, X and X, we can't give you 50% of, whatever, something happened, whatever. Okay, and then we've got budgeted profit before tax for ACL parent exclude, blah, blah. The annual rate of return on ACL parent average shareholders funds will be the target of 10% before tax based on the rolling average of the last 5 years. I would like to see in there, and that's up to them obviously, some sort of comparison with what a comparative company would do based on their level of investment and asset and things like what, that's their rolling average, but what would, I can't think of a comparison, I don't know a comparison, but Fulton Hogan, what do they do? Or Main Freight, or whatever,
I don't think that's really fair to ask ACL to have to do that.
Okay.
Their obligation is to give us their statement of intent.
Okay.
If we want to understand a
external
broader market,
Yeah.
then we could do some investigation as how we might do that. But I don't think ACL can
Okay.
fairly be asked to find out the
No, fair enough. So we could put
profit
that
margin
in
of
the
their
statement of
competitors.
our
Yep.
expectation. We will provide that, or we could do that. That might be a question for our finance team. perhaps, because I have no clue. I'm just saying, yes, that sounds good, or that doesn't sound good. I have no clue as to what is reasonable to expect for $20 million, company to return in terms of its investment, and is 10% good or bad or indifferent. I've got no clue. And I'm sure the directors do know, and they think it's very good, but some reassurance around that would be good as well for the rest of us. Yeah.
Murray, have you?
Yeah, I was just going to add to that in terms of context. I think it's a good question, and I think the context around the ownership structure, the percentage of ownership, and how the work comes from council or the open market, it's very different depending on the various entities. So it's a good question, but it's quite a complex one, different to answer in terms of comparing the various entities and how they operate in different sort of parts of the country. So it might be a useful conversation to have between council and the board at those meetings that are had, in terms of just making sure the performance is right and how they monitor that in terms of overall company performance. But in terms of comparing to the market, I do agree it would be very difficult.
Just with ACL though, they compete on the open market for any of our tenders, the same as any other company.
Yes, I'm aware of that, but I guess that there are other nuances to that in terms of percentage of work which comes from local government versus
the
private
sector,
private customers, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think there's another key difference, particularly to a non-council owned company, in that they are quite free to have loyal relationships with loyal clients, where they don't necessarily have to go to the tender box for every contract. So while any work that ACL wins from us is through the tender box, they might well have repeat business from other clients who aren't faced with the same procurement restrictions as we are, and that'll be true for all their competitors, and there'll be a vast array of different arrangements that's making each company's successful company. So it'll be a very difficult picture. And even if you tried to compare ACL to other council-owned CCOs, we're very aware that some of the CCOs not far from here don't have to compete for all their work with their parent council. So the comparison will be hard and potentially won't give you quite the answers that you're seeking.
Councillor Brown, did you have a question? Or?
No, I'm quite.
Do you have another question, Councillor Cameron?
Comment.
Okay.
We'll take that just before we move the motion, so if you're happy just to turn your light off for a second.
I accept that, and I think that's a good point. I just think we need some rigour around that and some insight. I accept all those caveats, and I understand, and perhaps we break it off, and I understand if you've got an ongoing relationship, things are different. I understand all that, but I'm assuming that would be same for every other company, a little bit. They've got ongoing relationships with them. But with regards to like other CCOs that are given they don't tender, well, I think that's not a reasonable comparison either. I just think to have some insight into the performance would be useful, and we have good history now with ACL, and they're performing outstandingly. Well, we think they are, but I think just a wee check every now and then wouldn't hurt.
Thank you. Councillor Braham, you happy to move?
Yes, the recommendation as it stands.
Thank you. Councillor Cameron seconding. Any further discussion or debate? No, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried. Thank you. Okay, page 25. EA Networks Centre heat pump insurance claims, and we have Richard with us. Anything you'd like to add at all, Richard?
No, good afternoon, councillors. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor. Nothing more to add other than just explaining this report is and informing council of the insurance outcome as a result of the heat pump replacements.
Thank you. Councillor Cameron.
Thanks for that, Richard, through the chair. It's a long time ago, isn't it? 2 years ago, and that's probably a reflection that we are the council, and that there's no urgency to the insurance companies haven't reacted with urgency to this, or they've required more detail which seems unreasonable because I note that one of the claims is still ongoing, the one for $90,000 further on down there. Claim 1, is that still ongoing?
No, through the chair, both claims are now closed.
Oh, okay.
Sorry,
So I'm looking at an old
that's what
part
that
of the
says it is.
report.
It could be. Yeah, no, both claims are now closed for the total that is listed on page 25.
So we're 100,000 short of replacement for what was replaced. We've got 200,000 and something, is it? And it cost 386. Is that right?
So each bank of heat pumps alone were 185,000, and the insurer replaced them for around 94,000 without having the right figure in front of me. And then there was additional insurance to support additional costs through business interruption. So it cost us more LPG and more electricity to continue running the centre. They gave us insurance for that as well. But there is a shortfall, yes.
Yes, yeah. And what was that shortfall, please?
Through the chair, we would have to probably do some math. I'm looking sideways at Sarah to give you that exact figure, but happy to come back on that.
You got it there, Sarah?
Just while people are thinking about that, is it the difference between the claim and the 649 cost? Because if that's the case, then it's $440,000.
Yeah,
Thank you for the
that's
math,
what
Hamish.
I thought. So, is that correct?
Correct.
That's correct. So we pay, what are we paying in insurance this year? Is that public excluded? I can't remember that. But it's a lot of money and it's gone up a lot. Do we have insurance that is fit for purpose?
Yes, we do. Insurance is complicated. It's not a linear relationship unless you've got a very clear claim. And this report shows the complexity and why the insurance company had a different perspective. And it's just a very fair process. And I have to say that I've had a number of experiences with insurance companies, and it hasn't just taken this long because we're a council. Insurance companies' obligation is to pay out what they're due to pay, but not necessarily what clients think they should pay. And so that process is a well-trodden path, and it's often complex and it takes time. It doesn't take time just because we're a council.
Okay, I accept that. Thank you. I am worried. My worry is that we have got a lot of insurance that we have paid a lot for. Do we need to go back and talk to our insurance broker and make sure that we're not going to have a $400,000 shortfall, which is about 0.8% of a, 1% in a rates bill, next time they break down?
So the real question is our appetite for risk. And this committee, in contemplating our insurance cover, has discussed appetite for risk, and the amount that you pay will take into account, and the coverage that you buy will take into account the risk you're prepared to take. And things like the excess that you take, which is always going to be payable, and if you want to reduce the premiums and take additional risk, then when you have a claim, you're going to be paying some money yourself because that's the cover you bought. Similarly, the coverage that you buy, this council, for example, decided not to take cyber risk insurance because the premium was so extraordinarily high. We felt, council felt, that they were better off to bear the risk of cyber sabotage and not take any insurance cover at all. So those are the sort of questions that you fairly ask yourselves at the time of the policy, and then when you have an opportunity to make a claim, then you have to deal with the intricacies of that specific claim and end up coming to a place where the parties can agree. It's always complicated, it's always nuanced, and it's always related to the particular claim, and then your experience from those claims will dictate whether or not you think that insurance is either good value or you want to continue with it, or alter the cover and pay whatever is appropriate to pay.
With respect, Hamish, I understand that and I accept that, and we did have a very hefty discussion around the appetite for risk. But also we are paying a premium for new heat. We did pay a premium for new heat pumps, and it did take a long time to settle, and we got nowhere near. Well, we did get new heat pumps, but we ended up paying for them. And I just want to be reassured that things, and we talked about the bridges and we talked about this building, I understand all that, but things that are going to break down, because we paid, and I understand that you pay more excess and you get, more cover for less bang and all the rest of it. But I just want to make sure that this is an opportunity to look at EA Networks, which is used by, what was it, Richard, 4.5 million people in the last year? Was it the...
Well, to completely segue, I can tell you that today we've passed 500,000 for the year, for the first time ever.
500,000, which is a tremendously busy facility and tremendously loved and well used, and we've got to look after it. And I just don't like paying, but, you know, we get 200 insurance and we pay 400 for replacement. You know, I just think we need to make sure it's always up to gear. Thank you. That was my only point.
Councillor Brown, you have a question?
Oh, it is right, after a while. Richard, a couple of questions. The small units, are they as work as the big one, or are they easier?
Through the chair, so we've gone for 3 units replacing 1, which we've talked about before. Each one of those units produces around the same capacity. So the 3 units in a bank produce around the same capacity as the 1 unit did. The beauty of the 3 units is, should one fail for whatever reason, and they are insured separately, we're able to take 1 unit out and maintain a lot more heating capacity.
So maintenance time, it's 1 and 1 and 1.
Correct.
Not 3. Yeah. So over the years you can spread it out a wee bit more.
That is correct. So there is a total of 6 heat pumps altogether.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr Mayor.
Yeah, just under legal and policy implications under climate change, the replacement of heat pumps will have a reduction of LPG usage, so that helps the greenhouse gas. What about the units that have been removed? Where are they now? Where did they end up? The old ones that were...
Through the chair, they were dismantled and taken to scrap metal as part of that process. So whatever could be recycled through scrap metal was.
Should that be something, when we dismantle something and get rid of it, should it be a note in there of where it ends up at the end of life as part of climate change? In future reports, I mean. If we're getting rid of something.
Yes, we're happy to. We won't always know the end of life. For example, if we sell it.
Oh no, it's not end of life.
We don't know where it goes next. But if your question is, should we have some kind of disposal comment?
Yeah.
We could add that to our template reports.
Yeah, like I think if we could demolish a building, where did it all end up? Was it recycled or did it all end up in landfill?
We won't always know, because we'll have a contract with the demolition firm, and they will presumably recycle what they can and dump what they can't, and we wouldn't always absolutely know that.
Don't want to be under false impression of everything we get rid of just ends up in landfill. We need to be doing our bit to recycle where we can. I was wondering if we should know to be a good citizen.
Thank you. I think a good idea, so yeah, thank you. Any other questions? No, we have the recommendation there on page 25. Someone happy to move that the Audit and Risk Committee receives this report? Councillor Wilson, Councillor Brahm. Any further comment? No, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried, thank you. Okay, page 42. Bancourt Treasury Report, March 25. Hello, welcome.
Hello.
Just get you to turn your light on. Anything further you'd like to add to the report?
I assume everyone's read the report, but there was the breach, which I assume you may have questions on.
Yeah. Any questions? Councillor Wilson.
On page 54 of the Baycorp report, there's a beautiful little graph there that puts us right near the bottom of the interest rate, which is a good place to be at the bottom, obviously. You know, that was done, obviously, we had advised and made some very good decisions when rates were very low and fixed, and we've been carrying them sort of forward. You know, will we with our current policy, that would mean if we're fixing and rates have dropped, we would tend to head back to the middle again. Would that be a comment? Or where do you think we'll end up, probably in the next 12 months on that sort of graph? Because that's really what we can compare ourselves with, really.
Mr. Chair, perhaps I could comment just before Loretta answers that, is that our experience, because of the advice we get from Bancorp, and that includes not just fixing, but of course the hedging program, is that we have often been at the lower end of that interest graph. So our expectation would be that we would continue to be lower end, and provided we continue to take the good advice we get and implement the recommendations that we receive, then there's no reason why we should expect to start to have cost of funds increasing compared to our peers, or increasingly proportionately compared to neighbouring councils.
And another question, which are we, is the current borrowing strategy, are we in line with what our annual plan predicted? Because we're obviously we haven't quite started an annual plan, but is it in line with where we're predicting interest rates to be over the next 12 months?
Yes, so our prediction was related to the cost of funds as opposed to interest rates, and so that's where the management of our debt portfolio becomes so critical. I haven't received any information that our estimated debt servicing costs at 3.7% is under significant threat as we move into the next financial year.
Councillor McMillan.
Thank you. I'm on page 44, number 6, and it just, at the bottom of that paragraph, it says a change to the Treasury policy to give effect to this approach could be incorporated in the next policy review. I'm just wondering when our Treasury policy is up for review next, and does it need to be brought forward, and if so?
No, I'm sorry, I don't actually know when it's up for review, but we can take a note of that review date and let councillors know.
Thank you.
Mr Mayor.
Yeah, same question, same line that the Deputy Mayor's following around the policy review. Is the policy, we haven't reviewed it for a little bit of time, we haven't changed it anyway for a wee while, is now, because interest rates are now heading down to their lows again, and we've got short term, we've got floating, and we'll fix for only 4 to 8 years. Now, if we're reviewing a policy, I question why 8 years, why not longer at low interest rate times? It's when you fix for longer. Our policy doesn't allow it. Should it allow it? Probably should. So I think a review would probably be helpful sooner rather than later, because we're entering low interest rate times again. And if we look at our rates we took 6, 7, 8 years ago when they were down at 1% or less, which are rolling off shortly, then interest rates were at another all-time low. So we need to have a good look at, and Bancorp should be advising us to do something, I would imagine. So it's getting timely to review, I think.
Yes, let's do that. Just keeping in mind that the swaps and the hedging program is a big part of the maintenance of our debt servicing costs. So it's not just about fixing when interest rates are low. It's about taking the precautions and taking the risk out of what interest rates do by making assessments along the way. So we can examine it, but we'll need a good chat about what we currently do, because we do have a relatively stable, relatively low cost of debt, and it's not generally caused by fixing. It's generally caused by the management of the portfolio via the swaps and hedges.
Murray?
I won't repeat the same message because I was going to say a similar thing. I think a review might be a good idea, or at the very least, I'm not sure how often the intersection between this committee and Bancorp happens, but it might be useful to be able to ask some of those questions of Bancorp in this session, because that'll give us comfort. I mean, it's been well performing historically, but it's pretty volatile at the moment, and we are planning for the long term. So I think it's useful just for peace of mind to have that conversation in this forum, but potentially.
Yeah, no, we'll make a note of that. Miles does come from Bancorp, has been to the committee on occasion, but we probably haven't seen him for a little while.
Once
So,
a year, isn't
yeah, maybe he comes annually. Anyway, we'll reach out to him given the volatility in the market and see if he can make the next or a future Audit and Risk Committee while this council's still in session, and to give an update and discuss the way he's seeing the market and how our policy is responding. Yep.
And you'll also check when our next review is due, and we'll decide then if this committee would like it sooner than that.
Yes, we'll send that. We'll send the review date out. I'm sure it'll be either later today or tomorrow morning, and then we'll get Miles down at a suitable time to have a discussion about where we're at.
Thank you. Councillor Cameron.
Do we need to move a motion that we review the policy? So do we need to put that in? Well, we've got this committee in situ rather than wait 18 months or a year or whatever. Do we need?
What I'd suggest is that once you know when it's due, because if it's due for review at the 31st of December, then you might be satisfied that you don't have to do anything. If it's a number of years away and you think that's too late, the opportunity council would have is when you receive as council the minutes of this committee, you could, as a segue, move then an early review if you felt that was appropriate. Yep.
Thanks so much. Can I ask a quick? That wasn't me.
No.
Can you explain to me the technical breach, please, with regards to the hedging thing, so I can make sure I understand it correctly? Through the chair.
Hamish, do you have a better understanding? I don't want to, get it wrong, but
No,
it was over a short period of 15 days. So
I think that the technical breach was outside the policy associated with the timing of some movement of funds, and the message here is that actually advantaged council, but it was technically outside the policy. And what we're including the comment here is that's the reason for the review, because we're conscious that some councils, and Helen has explained some experiences that she's had in the North Island, whose policies are not as rigid as ours, and they do allow some short-term or some short-term technical breaches where the council's going to be advantaged. Our policy just doesn't allow it, and so it's the rigidity of the policy that is kind of the issue. And so you report a technical breach and it sounds inappropriate, and in one sense it is, but perhaps it's a policy that could be a little more flexible to advantage council, and it's the way in which the funds are coming in and being moved out into investments, and by the technical breach created a little bit of extra revenue for council.
So why doesn't our policy allow it?
Such a good question. I don't know, but it doesn't.
The review will give you a chance to ask that question. Go to you, Mr. Mayor, and then I have a couple of questions from our...
Yep. Hamish, you're right. When the review's up in December, you used the word December, that was the only right bit. 20th of December 23 is when we did it last and adopted it, and it gets reviewed every 3 years or as required. So we can do it now. I don't know if you need a motion to progress that, but perhaps it gives help, assistance, that I'll move that we do look at reviewing the Treasury management policy.
And I'll see that, please.
Do you want to put a time?
As soon as possible. It might be a month or 2 or 3, I'm not sure, but I'm sure Hamish will give guidance on when it's possible.
Yeah, no, we will do it as soon as possible, and thank you for that wording, because I'm very conscious that as we move into the 1st of July, the finance team who will be associated with this review will be donkey deep in both audit and loading up general ledgers with the new budgets and et cetera, so a very busy time for the finance team. We're also working on the water service delivery plan, so as soon as possible is great, and we will respect that message and do it just as soon as we can, but without a firm date.
Thank you. So we'll just deal with that motion first. So we've had a mover of the Mayor, seconder Councillor Cameron. Any questions?
I think it's just timely that it's done with the changing financial markets that are happening in the swinging big ways. Are we aligned with them today? It'll be good to review.
Murray, is your question related to that, or?
Oh, no, actually, I probably should have taken the head down. Like, I was just on a technical breach piece, I think it was, my interpretation was it's a wee bit like people who have been floating their mortgages for a short period of time, knowing that interest rates in this environment were going to come back down from where they've been over the last couple of years. So we were outside our policy for a period, knowing that, you know, the rates were going to come down again. So while it's a breach of the policy in the short term, you can see there's certain better outcomes in the long term. So it's a technical breach to get an advantage. So, you know, I'd support looking at that to be able to do that within policy rather than breaching policy. But a breach of policy, it's only a breach of policy. It's not necessarily disadvantageous. I know it sounds bad, but it does happen probably more regularly than you want it to, but it doesn't have any negative consequence because you're thinking through why you're doing it, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Thanks, Murray.
Thank you for that clarification. So no further questions on the motion? If not, I'll put it. All those in favour, please say aye. Carried. Thank you. Right. Still any further questions on the Treasury report? If not, there's the motion there to receive Bancourt Treasury report for the March 25 quarter. Councillor Cameron, Councillor Brown. I'll put that. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Right. Risk pool, page 55. Once again, do we have nothing you'd like to add to that, Hamish, at all?
No, we've talked about this a lot, and we respect the dissatisfaction with the situation that is in front of us, but there is no wishing it away, and I think the report stands on its own merits. Happy to answer any questions. I can just add that various council chief executives were at a meeting in Wellington a couple of weeks ago, and we did have an update from the risk pool directors, and there's everything that's in this report was said in that meeting. All the dissatisfaction was palpable, but the rock and hard places is real for everybody involved, as it is for Ashburton District. The one thing they did add at that meeting was ongoing conversations with the reinsurers in the UK. So some of the claims that have previously been made and have been paid out haven't yet been reimbursed by risk pool's reinsurers. So that is a piece of action that they are spending some time focusing on for the good health of the finances of risk pool and therefore the members.
Any Councillor Lovett?
Is there a time limit of so many years on this, or can it go on for another 20, 30 years, or does...
That second thing, yeah. There is no time limit. In the end, it has to run out, but no one can predict when, and because they're still exposed to claims not yet made.
There may be a day that we are the beneficiary that need to make a claim.
Well, this is the point, and Rispol made the point that one of the very difficult things for them is the relationship with their members, because it's the members who are making the claim. And if you remember back to previous advice, the case that set the Rispol uncertainty into overdrive was the case that Napier City took to court and won. But Napier is a member of Rispol, but they proved that they were due a payout, but that's created the uncertainty for all members. And one of the issues for Rispol is, in those sort of complex situations, how do you deal with your member who might be making the claim compared to dealing with the member who ultimately is paying the claim? And over the life of Rispol, it was successful for councils. They paid out more than the premiums paid because of the investment strategies, and so it worked. But that particular Napier case has created uncertainty as to how the company can be wound up.
Are there any further questions? No. So we have the recommendation there that the Audit and Risk Committee recommends to Council to receive the update from Risk Pool on Risk Pool's progress on winding up, and B, Council's ongoing liability, including the anticipated further call on members in August 2025. Councillor Wilson, happy to move.
Yes.
Councillor Brahms, seconding. Any further comment or debate? Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Carried. Thank you.
So, Chair, just on the page 61, there's a comment there. We plan to hold a members' webinar shortly after the AGM on the 13th of June, provide a further update on the wind-up of the scheme. Has that been had, and did anyone attend?
13th of July, isn't it?
Through Mr Mayor, if the AGM was the 13th of June, was that just last week? So I don't think that webinar's been held yet,
No.
unless, I'm looking at Loretta, unless someone from the finance team attended a webinar in the last week. Okay, so Loretta's saying that they're anticipating that webinar in the next 2 weeks. Yeah.
Friday the 11th of July.
Is that the date of it?
Yes. Right. Page 63. Trans waste dividend. Yeah. Just happy to take questions.
Yes.
Any questions there on the trans waste report? Councillor Cameron.
We have 3% of the shares, as I understand, in the company. If our population grows or decreases or changes, does that give us extra allowance to have a different proportion of shares? Or if our waste goes up proportionally, or is there any?
No.
It is what it is.
Yeah, no, we receive benefit by dividends based on our shareholding, not on our level of waste or population.
And our shareholding is fixed.
Absolutely.
We can't go to Christchurch City and say, we'll buy all your shares. Not that we would, but just...
Yes, you could. You could trade the shares if someone was a willing buyer and a willing seller.
Sure.
But until that happens, we are 3%.
Yeah. Do they have a value? Like, I mean, I'm sure they do, but what is, if we're getting a $150,000 dividend on $600,000 shares, what's their price earnings ratio or something? Do they have a value?
They are valued every year for our financial accounts, but I don't know off the top of my head, though.
Yep. So our annual report will show that value, but we can.
We've never thought to go out and sell them. That would be foolish if we're getting... I'm just hypothetically musing. I'm not proposing that.
Okay.
That
would have to be something that would come from council.
Well, it would have to be a reason to do it.
Yes.
You know, if they're valued at $10,000 each or $1 million each or something, well, we might do, but we may not. Is that a possibility, or do you have to be a shareholder in order to retain access to the shares?
Yep. Liz might be able to help us with that too. Liz.
I was just going to make a comment that on the 6th of August council meeting, we've got Grant Miller, who's now the chair of Transwaste, coming to speak to us. And I think some of it will be in open meeting and some in public excluded. So probably a good time to ask questions. Then I know we also get a rebate back on transportation of our waste going through to Cape Valley as well.
Yeah. Yes.
So that goes directly into the waste income, doesn't it?
And could I recommend, Mr. Chair, that you don't have those musings with Grant Miller, the chairman of Transwaste? No, that if we are to examine seriously a sale of the shares, that we do that privately.
Agree.
Well, I'm really conscious this is a public meeting too.
Yeah.
I know.
Thank you.
And just to add on, sorry, I wasn't commenting on Councillor Cameron's question, but more insight would come from Grant Miller when we meet him when he comes to the council meeting. But and I'm not sure if we did sell our shares, what that would mean for us going forward with our waste management.
Well, we wouldn't have access to Cape Valley, so we'd have to have another solution. So
Yeah,
it looks like a very hard piece of work.
there's no other solutions.
No.
Yeah, I think if you look at the constitution, it'll say how many shares we need to hold to be able to use the Cape Valley facility when it was set up 10, 15, or maybe more than that, whatever years ago. There's a minimum shareholding, and we have to have them if we want to dispose of the rubbish.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
I understood that the cost of replacing Cape Valley is many, many times greater than what it was to build it. So the value of the shares would be, to organise it, it's a bit like the RDR, saying the value of the RDR is X, but actually to replace the RDR would be a phenomenal amount. And this is the same sort of infrastructure. We're very lucky to have a share in it, I would say, rather than looking to sell it.
I think the share has a higher value than the return we get from them. Councillor Cameron.
Oh, thank you. Just once and for all, I was not suggesting that. I wanted to know what they were worth, and can we, predominantly I was suggesting that seems like a good divvy, can we get more, or how do you get more?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of got bigger than Ben-Hur.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
and purposely manipulated, I believe, but that was not my suggestion.
No. Cool. Thank you. Annual report will tell you the value of those shares. Yeah. No, it'll be there somewhere. Any further questions? No, we have the recommendation that Council receives the Transwaste Canterbury Limited dividends report. We have a mover. Councillor Brahm. I'll second. Any further discussion? If not, I'll put them up. Oh, sorry. Yes, Councillor Wilson.
The ironical thing about the dividend that we received from Transwaste is that the higher the dividend, the more we pay to send our rubbish there. So it's one of these ones where if you want a big dividend, you end up paying more. So it's robbing Peter to pay Paul. That's the ironical thing about Transwaste.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. That brings us to the end of the open part of the meeting. Someone move, please, that we go into committee. Councillor Wilson, Mr. Mayor, can't read the lights today. All those in favour, please say aye. Carried, thank you.